Name's Mark. I'm 23, living just beyond the outer wall of Caer Wynthal, a quiet hamlet tucked under the shadow of the Eastern Keep. I've served 3 years now as a watchman for the town guard. And truth be told, 'twas all I ever wished for. Even as a boy, I would stand in awe of the guardsmen on their patrols, shields glinting helms tall, riding toward danger, whilst the rest of us clung to safety behind wooden gates. I used to perch on the fence posts and wave whenever a rider passed, dreaming of bearing the steel and banner myself. My kin thought it just a childish phase, but it held. These days I live alone in a modest stone cottage with 2 chambers and a thatched roof. The hearth smokes a little too much in the rain, but I manage. Out front rests an old wagon missing a wheel, still haven't gotten round to mending it. My hound Loki keeps me company. No matter how often I scrub my tunic and mail, the scent of smoke and pitch lingers like a ghost. It isn't much, but it's home. I like the order of it, the rhythm, the weight of the duty. What I do matters, and I hold tight to that truth. Last Thorns Day began as most do. Morning muster, stale bread, poor ale gear inspections. It was quiet at first, just scroll work and checking the water barrels on the towers. Near the hour of second bell, past midday, a runner arrived from the western quarter. A kitchen fire by the sound, nothing grave. Some smoke, perhaps an overturned kettle or fire logs left too near the embers. We were saddled and off within minutes. By the time we reached the home, a squat brick cottage with red shutters and ivy curling up the walls, the fire had nearly died. The kettle made of poor clay had cracked and caught flame, but the alarm bell from the square brought aid swift enough. No great harm done. We aired the place, checked for fire in the walls, made sure the beams were steady. No one hurt. The smell of scorched wood hung thick in the air, like it always does. We were just lashing the water skins and loading tools back on the cart when the lady of the house came outside. She looked to be in her early 40s, mayhap mid. There was an ease to her that most folk don't carry. Hair bound tightly at the crown, simple tunic, apron dusted with flour, and her eyes sharp as a hawk's. Not flirtatious, not distant, just aware. "You lads are saviors," she said as she approached. "Truly, I'd have been lost without you." "We're just glad you're unharmed," I told her. She gave me a slow once-over and smiled the kind of smile that knew something you didn't. "And you," she said, "you scarce look old enough to swing a sword, let alone guard a gate." I laughed. "Aye, I hear that oft enough." "Well, thank you," she said. Then, almost as if she'd planned it, she stepped close and tucked something into the fold of my surcoat. "A small token," she murmured. "Nothing grand. To Before I could say a word, she turned away and disappeared back inside. Back at the barracks, the lads teased me mercilessly about the lady with the smokehouse. I shrugged it off. Later, when the evening bell had rung and I had a moment to myself, I reached into the fold of my tunic to see what she'd left. It was a small cloth pouch tied with red thread. Inside, 2 hand-formed honeyed truffles dusted in ground nut. Looked like the sort you'd find in a noble's pantry, not in a village kitchen. And a note folded twice, written in a soft but sure hand. It read, "For the kind eyes and the steady hands. Helen. 9:15. I stared at it for a long moment, not sure what I was meant to feel. I hadn't known her name until that instant. Helen. It suited her. Strong, unadorned, like she didn't need to explain herself. Women like her didn't often hand me notes, especially not those with eyes like hers. I slipped the note into the small pouch I keep by my belt and said nothing. But it wasn't just the words that stayed with me, it was how she looked at me. Like she saw something beneath the armor, like she knew something even I didn't. I've stood watch while folks screamed, panicked, cried out in terror. But Helen, she smiled, calm, composed. I didn't plan to send a messenger straight away. Figured she was being kind, nothing more. Still, she lingered in my thoughts all day and into the night. That kind of energy steady sure it hangs about. My watch ended with the dawn. I walked home under the gold-pink sky, gave Loki his bread crust, and sat on the bench outside my door with a tin mug of steeped root tea. I pulled her note from my pouch again, ran my thumb across her name. That was the moment I decided I would write to her. I tried to keep myself busy sharpening blades, scrubbing out the hearth, sorting firewood, anything to steady my thoughts. But they circled back to her every time. When I finally picked up the quill and parchment, I froze for a moment. What was I even supposed to write gratitude for the sweets? Would you care to sup with the lad who quelled your hearth fire? Still, I took a breath and set ink to parchment. The message was simple, Lady Helen. It was an honor to assist you yesterday. Your gift was unexpected and much appreciated. If you'd ever wish to share a meal or conversation, I'd be glad to meet. Mark Watchman of Eastgate. I sealed it with wax and sent a stable lad to deliver it before dusk. I didn't expect a reply so soon, but just past first bell the next morning, the boy returned with a folded scrap of vellum tied in twine. I was hoping you'd write. Thought perhaps I came on too bold. Mid-morn tomorrow at the Thistle and Crown. She signed simply Helen. The Thistle and Crown was a warm little tavern near the market square, stone walls, a crooked roof, and the best root stew for miles. The kind of place where the innkeep knew every face and remembered what ale you preferred. Of course I arrived early, found a corner table tucked beneath the beams, and waited. She came in about 10 minutes past the bell, not rushed, not late in the careless way, intentional, like she wanted to see if I'd wait. She wore a pale woolen shift, her cloak slung loose over one arm, no jewelry, no paint upon her face. Yet she looked sharper, calmer than anyone else in the room. You actually came, she said as she took the seat across from me. You doubted I would. No, she said, but I hoped you would. Then she gave me that look again, the one like she was reading the whole of me like scripture. We spoke for over an hour. She told me she once lived in the southern cities near the Silver Coast, but came to Winthal 8 years ago after some changes. She didn't say what. I didn't ask. She asked about my post, the shift's my kin. I told her I grew up chasing the guard wagons through muddy lanes, pretending I was one of them. She laughed, said she could picture it. Me just smaller, still wild-eyed, still running toward trouble. That first meeting, it wasn't romantic, no touches, no innuendo, just honest talk. Gentle pacing. Easy silences. She was comfortable to be near. Not just beautiful, though she was, but composed, thoughtful, like the world didn't shake her. When we were done, she stood, drew her cloak over her shoulders, and said, "I'd do this again." I nodded. Me too. She stepped out, and I didn't turn around until the tavern door clicked shut behind her. Over the weeks that followed, we kept meeting, always in places where others passed through, a walk by the south fields, a bench near the herb market, a stool at a quiet wine stall by the river. She never invited me to her home, rarely sent word first, and whenever I asked gently about her past, she'd smile a little and steer the talk elsewhere. I didn't press. I wasn't in haste. I wasn't in love, not yet, but I liked the road we walked together. Then came a rainy Freyas night. A month or so had passed since our first letter. We supped at a quiet inn by the lake. Candlelight danced across the wooden beams, and the windows ran with rain. We shared a flask of blackberry wine. She seemed softer that night, less guarded, more present. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," she said, resting her chin on her hand. I chuckled. "I'm not all that interesting." "Everyone's interesting," she said, "especially those who run toward fire." I paused, thought for a moment. "All right. When I was 14, I set fire to a stable bin on a dare, wanted to see if oil-soaked wool would catch." She laughed, a real unguarded laugh. First time I'd seen her lose herself like that. "Your turn," I said, leaning in. She leaned back and thought eyes drifting to the timber ceiling. Then she looked at me straight. "I haven't felt like myself in a long time," she said. "It wasn't emotional, wasn't heavy. Just true." I didn't ask more. Instead, I reached across the table and laid my hand over hers. She didn't pull away. Later, I walked her to her horse under a drizzle of quiet rain. She turned just before mounting. Her hair was damp at the edges, her cloak half unfastened. "There are things I should have told you by now," she said. "Like what?" She gave me a small, tired smile. "Next time." Then she leaned in, gave me a brief kiss light as breath, and swung up into the saddle. I stood there for a while after she rode off, rain soaking my shoulders, trying to guess what next time might bring. Just before she stepped through the inside door into the rain, she turned to me. "There are things I should have told you by now," she said. "Like what?" She gave me that same tired half smile. The kind people wear when they've already decided not to explain. Next time. Then she leaned in, pressed a soft kiss to my cheek, and stepped out beneath the falling rain, her cloak lifting slightly in the wind. I stayed there a while, seated at the edge of the bed, watching raindrops streak the leaded window pane. I didn't know what next time was supposed to mean, but it hung in the air like a promise or a warning. Couldn't tell which. We kept meeting after that. Not often. Once or twice a week, perhaps. But each time felt easy. Natural. There was no talk of what this thing between us was, no pressure or planning. Just two people who seemed to find peace in each other's presence. And for a while, that was enough. Or at least, I thought it was. We never spent time at her cottage. She always had a reason. The hearth was cold, the roof leaked. She was busy preparing commissions or tending to some obligation. I didn't question it. Didn't look for warning signs. Truth is, I wasn't looking for anything. I just liked being around her, the quiet mystery she carried, the calm she seemed to wear like armor. She made the noise in my head, the fires, the screams, the ever-present alertness go still just for a little while. About 6 weeks after that first note, she finally asked if I would spend the night. But not at her place. Instead, she arranged for a chamber at the Swan and Laurel, a well-kept inn at the edge of the western wood. Clean, private, respectable enough not to raise questions, but far enough outside town to avoid curious eyes. I didn't ask why. I probably should have, but I didn't. She met me in the candlelit common room, greeting me with a soft kiss to the cheek and a smile that made the rest of the room vanish. We took supper upstairs, roasted duck and turnips sent up on a tray by a red-cheeked servant girl. She wore a loose linen robe, her hair down her face bare. She looked tired, but different somehow, more at ease. We sat together on the edge of the bed legs tucked beneath us, sharing wine from a pewter cup. Talked for hours. About our youth, regrets, the people we used to be. At one point I asked, "Is this what you needed?" She met my gaze without flinching. This is the first time in years I haven't felt like I'm running from something. We didn't lie together that night, not in the way folk might assume. We kissed, held one another. Eventually she drifted off with her head resting on my chest, her hand on my arm. And for the first time in what felt like a long while, I felt seen. Not for the uniform I wore, not for the duties I performed, just for being me. I woke just after dawn as the sun barely began to touch the edge of the hills. Her satchel was by the bedside, and her hand still rested lightly on my chest. Then I heard it. A buzzing sound, repeated, urgent. It wasn't a horn or knock. No, it was her messenger stone, a small enchanted charm that lit and vibrated when bound to another. It glowed red, flashing again and again atop the nightstand. At first I thought it might be a morning alarm, but then I saw the name etched in the glow. Love. It pulsed, missed call, then another. Same contact, same word. My chest tightened. I didn't want to pry. I didn't want to look. But it was right there, glowing like a beacon in the dim room, like a warning I couldn't unsee. I stayed still, just stared. Eventually she stirred beside me, opened her eyes, and smiled sleepily. Morning. Your charm's been lighting up for a while, I said, voice low. She reached over lazily to check it, and froze. The smile disappeared. She looked down, then up at me. I was going to tell you, she said softly. I said nothing. She sat up, pulling the wool blanket tight across her chest. Took a breath like she was preparing to be struck. His name is Vincent. He's my husband. That word hit harder than a mace to the ribs. Husband. She nodded. How long? 15 years. I stood, found my tunic, pulled it on without breaking eye contact. I don't want to hear more. Not right now. Do you have children? I asked, though I already knew. She nodded again. 2. A boy and a girl, both of age for the village school. I felt like a fool, an utter trusting fool. You told me you lived alone. I do, she said. In truth, he's away most moons for trade. We've been separated, but not unwed, I said flatly. No, she whispered. Not yet. I looked around the room, the shared wine. The warmth, the fire, the comfort. And this, what is this? It's real, she said quickly. It is. I didn't plan any of it. I wasn't seeking anyone. You just let it happen, I said bitterly. She looked down. You showed up. That's all. You showed up. I let it hang. Didn't speak. You should have told me, I said. I know. I slung my cloak over my shoulders and moved for the door. Then I stopped. Turned once. I don't do this. I'm not that kind of man. I know, she said too fast. That's why I couldn't stay away. I left without another word. I rode aimlessly for a while, rein slack in my hand, letting the wind cut at my cheeks and the weight settle. No music, no fire in my chest, just the echo of her words and the hollowness she left behind. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. But I was disappointed, and somehow that felt worse. I'd started to trust her, started to picture what it might be like if she stayed in my life. Not forever, perhaps, but something real, something lasting enough to mean something. And now that hope was gone. She didn't send a writer, didn't send word. Not that day, not the next. Maybe we both understood what the silence meant. That night, I took the little folded note she had given me, her name written in careful strokes, and tossed it into the hearth. Watched it curl and blacken in the coals. I didn't need it anymore. A week passed, then another. Still nothing from Helen. No parchment, no messenger. I unbound her ribbon from my belt pouch and burned that too. Didn't make much difference. I tried not to think of her, but I did, especially during the long, lonely hours of night watch when the torches burned low and the rest of the town slept. When the only sound was the wind pushing through the cracks in the tower. I'd find myself wondering, was she all right? Did her children know? Had her husband figured it out? Part of me hated her for pulling me into something I never asked for, but another part, one I didn't want to name, just missed her. Late one market eve, I found myself riding near her quarter. Not because I meant to. My cousin lives just beyond the mills, but as I passed her street, my pace slowed. Couldn't help it. Her cottage looked the same as ever, neat garden, that great old ash tree out front, shutters drawn tight. I was just about to keep riding when a cart rolled into her drive. A man climbed down, looked to be early or mid-40s, wore rough boots, cloak dusted with plaster, hands calloused like a stonemason or thatcher. He unlatched the back of the cart and began unloading sacks, grain potatoes, a bundle of firewood. I don't know what compelled me, but I dismounted, tied my horse to a post across the way, and crossed the lane. "Good eve," I called out. He turned. His face was guarded, but polite. Are you? Vincent. He blinked. His stance shifted. I am. Who asks? I held up my hand. Mark, I know, Helen. He didn't take the hand at first, just looked at me, weighing something. Then slowly he clasped my forearm. You from her work? No. I'm with the town watch. Met her during a fire call some moons back. I paused. I think we ought to speak. He studied me, long and hard, then gave a small nod toward his door. Let me bring these in first. He stacked the sacks neatly by the step, knocked twice, and left them there. Then came back. There's a tavern not far, the Mule's Tooth. You ride, I do. Then follow me. We rode in silence, the hooves muffled in the damp dirt of the trail. The sun dipped low. Sky bruised to dusk. The Mule's Tooth was a squat little place behind a cooper's yard, half lit, quiet. Smelled of old ale and smoked meat. We took a bench in the corner. He ordered a dark ale. I asked for spring cider. He took a long drink, then set the tankard down. How long? About 6 weeks, I said. I didn't know she was wed. Not until lately, I nodded. As soon as I learned, I stepped back. He turned the tankard in slow circles, watching the foam cling to the edges. I knew something was amiss, he said, voice low. She's been distant, cold, for a long time. He didn't say more at first, just let the silence stretch. I'm sorry, I finally said. He let out a slow breath. It's not your fault. If you didn't know, you didn't know. I can't fault you for that. I still feel like a fool, I admitted. He gave a tired laugh. Aye, you and me both. Then he opened up. Told me they were wed at 26. Said they used to laugh easily. Travel. dream of things beyond the village limits. Then came children, debts, the old roof that never stopped leaking. He took every job he could, masonry, roofing, even a stint digging trenches during plague season. Helen didn't want to work, he said, not bitter, just resigned. Said tending the house and raising the babes was enough. So I labored, sun up to sundown, missed birthdays, missed our hand-fasting day 3 years in a row. He drank. I thought I was doing it for her, for us. But to her, I was just distant. She said I didn't see her anymore. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. He ran a hand over his face slow. I tried. Gods know I tried. Offered to speak with the chaplain, go to council. She refused. She didn't want to fix it, just wanted out. Said she needed space. So I left. Went to stay with my brother past the river. He looked up then, straight at me, and then instead she found you. I didn't speak. Couldn't. The air between us sat heavy, like it had weight, but I held his gaze, because I owed him that much. What could I say? Did she ever speak of the children he asked, not looking at me? Not really, I said. He nodded as if that only confirmed what he already knew. They're good children, he said, bright, sensitive. They don't know anything yet. At least, I pray they don't. I leaned back on the bench, arms crossed, staring at the bottom of my tankard. I swear to you, I said quietly, if I had truly known, I never would have stepped near her. I believe you, he said simply. You strike me as an honest man. We sat in silence after that, two strangers tied together by a wound neither asked for. Then he spoke again, voice low but steadier now. You know what hurts the most, he asked. It's not the betrayal, not truly, it's that she didn't try. No fight, no fixing, just gave up. He drained the rest of his ale and stood. Thank you for speaking. Plain, Mark. Most men wouldn't have. He extended his hand again. This time the clasp was firm, solid, honest. I don't hold it against you, he said. Just hope she doesn't wound you the way she did me. I nodded. Thanks for hearing me out. He gave one last nod and walked out into the gray evening, his cloak flaring behind him. I sat there a while. The candle by our bench had nearly burned to wax. My cider had gone untouched now, warm and sour. I kept turning it all over in my head, her eyes the first time we met, the kiss in the rain, the way her voice cracked when she said she hadn't felt like herself in years. It had been real, every part of it. But it had been built on a lie. After that night at the tavern, I never saw Vincent again. And Helen, she never sent word. No note, no courier, no message slipped into the door. Just silence. Days turned to weeks. Then a full month passed. I buried myself in the watch, took double shifts, volunteered for late-night rounds, anything to stay tired, to stay busy, to keep my hands from drifting to that empty place in my satchel where her note used to be. It helped. A little. But you can't just scrub someone out of your life the way you scrub soot off a breastplate. She lingered. In the smell of smoke. In the way my house creaked in the wind. In songs played on the lute outside the tavern. I wasn't angry anymore. That had faded. But disappointment that stuck around longer than I wanted to admit. I didn't tell anyone what had happened. Not the men in my patrol, not my brother in the northern village, not even Edwin, my closest friend since childhood. It wasn't shame. Not exactly, it just felt private. Something I had to carry on my own. Then almost 2 moons later, her name surfaced again. It was a dull morning, overcast and cold. I was in the armory helping with maintenance checks when Captain Elric strolled in scroll and hand-wool cloak half-soaked from drizzle. Mark, he said, glancing at the parchment, you remember that house on the West Road, Phillips' place I froze? Helen Phillips, he looked up. You recall it? Yeah, I said slowly. I do. Word is, she's moved out. House is up for lease. Her husband came by asking about firewood stock and hearth seals. Said he's taking full care of the children, fixing the place up. I just nodded. Got it, and that was it. She was gone. No farewell, no explanation, no final word, just gone. Later that week, I rode past her road one last time. The curtains had been pulled down, a slate board hung from the fence post for let, no children's boots on the porch, no laundry strung by the side window. The garden looked neat, but lifeless. The house felt colder. Emptier. Not abandoned, just vacant in a deeper way. I pulled my horse to the side of the road and sat in the saddle for a while, reins slack in my hands. Not because I thought I'd see her again. I knew better. But because I needed to see that house and understand fully that it was over. Not just the affair, the illusion. Because that's what it had become in the end, an illusion dressed in warmth and mystery. A temporary escape for her from a broken marriage. And for me, from a quiet kind of loneliness I never wanted to name out loud. Maybe that's why it hurt so much. Not because I loved her, but because for a little while, I believed she might be real. I stayed there long enough to watch the shadows stretch across the yard as the sun sank behind the hills. Then I turned my mount, gave the reins a small tug, and didn't look back. Life, as it does, kept moving. I stayed in the guard, took on more responsibility. A few months later, I earned a promotion watch engineer. Less time patrolling the walls, more time directing the rotations, managing the stables and fire wardens. I liked it. It gave me focus. Reminded me why I chose this life in the first place. Reminded me why I took the oath in the first place. To serve, to stand steady when things burned or broke, to matter. Loki took ill for a time that winter, wouldn't eat, barely stirred. I feared I'd lose him. Sat by the hearth for hours whispering nonsense to him like he understood every word. But he pulled through. He's older now, slower. His back legs stiffen in the cold, but he still waits by the door when I return from watch-tail thumping eyes soft. Eventually, I began courting again. Nothing serious at first, just quiet walks through the market, a few kind souls, shared stew, shared silences, some laughters, a few awkward starts. And then one day I met someone. Not dazzling, not mysterious, just steady, kind. She made everything feel calm, real, honest, no riddles, no lies. We're not rushing anything, just letting it be what it is. And somehow that feels right. Sometimes rarely, but sometimes I still think of Helen. Not with longing, not with bitterness, just as a marker in my story. A chapter that closed, a lesson I keep close. I remember the way she looked at me the first time like I mattered, like I'd stepped into her world at the exact moment I was meant to. But timing doesn't solve everything, and not every thread is meant to be tied. Sometimes people pass through your life not to stay, but to show you where the line is, to teach you what not to settle for ever again. And I'm good with that now, truly.